Good
Oh, good.
morning.
How you
Oh,
doing?
we
I'm gonna
coordinated
yawn.
that. We
I know, yeah.
had a yawn.
I'm
This
good
is
at
our
yawning.
very first podcast, and you started it with a yawn.
Well, what else can you start with? I mean, you can start with all sorts of things, but I think yawning is sort of the relaxed Zen approach to it all.
Oh, very zen-like, Benjamin. Good
Very zen.
morning. If you are tuning in for the first time, um, this is the B Squared Natural Capital podcast. We are B Squared. We are Benjamin and Ben, and we're going to talk to you a bit about us, a bit about how we got into this space, and a bit about natural capital, what it is, how it can help you, and why we should consider it when we're making decisions.
Yeah. So, and I think the key to remember is, yeah, you know us from teaching, you know us from other venues. We're going to approach this much more from a corporate perspective. We're approaching this from a corporate value and use perspective versus the teaching perspective versus the we're going to academically build careers perspective. One of the things that happens is companies don't really understand their balance sheets. They don't really understand what they have that has value. So we're going to focus on how we can focus on the value of natural capital versus the cost.
I think that's an important point, Benjamin, value versus cost. Let's park that and come back to it in a little bit. Let's first introduce ourselves. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm Benjamin, not to be confused with Ben. I am the king of getting fired. Some would argue I'm the queen of getting fired. But basically, my focus is on how to get fired from interesting jobs and do fun things. My primary value in use, my personal natural capital, is I'm a human calculator. I can sit and I can look at things and I can come to conclusions quicker than other people. And I'm right some of the time. I would not argue I'm right all the time, but I'm right some of the time. More importantly, when I'm wrong, I'm pretty happy to be redirected. So it's not like I'm focused on being right at all costs. And I've got a PhD in environmental economics, a medieval history degree, a bit of other education, worked for 7 or 8 different industries, including hedge funds and OEMs and junior exploration people. And I co teach the BRIM Economic Leadership Program, which I think is probably the largest non Chinese mining education program in the world. So yeah, that's who I am. Oh, I also a dad of 5, single parent to 4 of those kids on a regular basis, and I think I sleep some days, but I'm not sure when.
I know you sleep because I think you'd be really aggravating if you didn't sleep. So, thank you, Benjamin. My name is Ben, not to be confused with Benjamin. Fortunately, we do have distinctly different accents, so you should be able to tell us apart if you're not watching the wonderful footage with this podcast. If you are watching the footage, it's kind of scary. Our haircuts are very similar, and you probably won't be able to tell the difference on that. My background is different to Benjamin. I would not claim to be a human calculator. I am an engineer. I have always worked in the mining industry. I'm an engineer of the processing flavour, specifically mineral processing, which is where I have worked the bulk of my career. Firstly, I started working on mine sites. I love the mining industry, use the mining industry to travel the world. It's been a fantastic ride so far. After doing work on different mine sites and different corners of the globe, I went to the dark side and started working for OEMs in the mineral processing space, which I've worked at until very recently. Um, Also, with Benjamin, started the BRIM certificate in economic leadership, very much from experience as I had had before and experience as Benjamin and I had looking at value, looking at how people deploy capital, looking at how people make decisions. Um, and yeah, that's sort of led us to this point where we're talking and focusing a lot on natural capital. Basically, because in an extractive industry like mining, uh, we impact natural capital a lot. We do a lot of good work, but basically we're taking natural capital and converting it into economic capital for society to use.
And before you get super angry at us because you're a hardcore environmentalist, which we are not, I would argue we're environmentalists, but I argue we are pragmatic environmentalists, which is a very uniquely different thing than a religious environmentalist. We know that we are going to deplete natural capital. We are not that worried about accounting for all the depletion that goes on because we think that if we spend our time accounting for depletion, we are not going to accomplish any changes. What we're very focused on as a religion is maximizing the economic value to all stakeholders from the depletion. Make the assumption that you're going to mine that ore body and consume the ore. Make the assumption that you're going to deplete that water table. Make the assumption that you're going to leave behind a tailings dam or a tailings facility of some sort. It could be a dry stack, it could be a dam. Make the assumption that when you sell the box of cereal, that the plastic bag the box of cereals in is not necessarily going to go to zero waste, meaning it's not going to be perfectly recycled. We're going to have depletion. The question is, how do we maximize the value of that depletion? How do we create the most for society as a whole for what we're going to deplete?
Yeah, so it in some ways too, we're very much economic environmentalists. We know there's a trade-off. We know there are goods and services, wants and needs. In the case of mining, the world wants metal. The world needs metal. And we're going to be the ones who make it. But we think we can do a better job doing that. And we think that's a core parameter, minimizing the impact of getting that metal in, making it as efficiently as possible. We think that's a key parameter which is often overlooked. The world in the last 20 years seems to have gone from a fairly economically almost greed-driven scenario where we've got to go out there, we've got to make money, we've got to go bigger, better, stronger, faster, to, oh, let's all be green. Let's do these wonderful focus on ESG. Let's do an ESG report. Let's do this and that and the other. And I think for a large part, we've missed a bit in the middle where there's a big opportunity to make things more efficient, to reduce impact we have on the planet, and not just mining, this is in many industries, and still be incredibly profitable. And that's the space we're going to work in and talk about.
Yeah, so I don't think that we need to, like Ben, I get this, okay? I get all of the we must do X and we must do Y. Let's start with simple things, okay?
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, how do you shave your head? I mean, let's start with the really important natural capital things because, like, I have really optimized that. Like, I've got the perfect razor and I figured out exactly what its life is. And I figured out where I get my replacement blades with the best environmental footprint. And I can tell you that my footprint to shaving my head is probably lower than the footprint that you use to shave your head.
Many years ago, Benjamin, I played on a rugby team and we shaved our heads with razor blades. And I didn't like how the regrowth was so quick that it stuck like Velcro to everything. So
But you have to try.
I just use a clippers on Blade Zero now,
And how often do you do it?
once a week.
Ah, okay. So that's why you always look like a scruffy
Oh, here we go.
Australian.
Yes, I will claim the Australian and I will claim the scruffy.
Yeah.
Um,
So you've optimized your natural capital to minimize your time shaving versus
yes.
maximize the look of your bald head.
Yes.
Have you have you
As a wise mentor of mine once said, you can't polish a turd. So I don't waste too much time on the beauty side of things, like
I
yourself.
don't know. I've taken you to gay beer bars, and I can tell you that you are a really, really hot bear. So I just don't think that that's going to be a problem. But let's get back to the core
That's
at hand.
my target market, but let's leave it there before you get
Yeah,
yourself in trouble on our first podcast.
well, you clearly are not a turd to some people. I mean,
Oh,
let's face
exactly.
it. Apparently,
I'm
apparently
just
the
in a
short
quiet
Irish, yeah, short Irish, Australian metallurgists apparently really appeal to certain demographics.
yeah.
So, I mean, if you put a bit of work into it, you could really make it fly. But let's focus back on the core demographic we're dealing with here. Okay.
Yeah.
We just talked about two different ways to look at shaving heads. Neither way is correct. Both ways are optimized. You've optimized, I've optimized. We both have optimized for different KPIs because we're fundamentally different humans. The problem that we have is we have a bunch of ESG people in the industry optimizing based on what they think the green market wants versus actually optimizing based on what creates value for the mining industry. So
And
if you, yep, go for it,
keep
Ben.
going, keep going, keep going.
No, I want your point
I
of
was
view.
going to say, and the other problem is just because of the nature of industry and work, a lot of those people come into the industry. They don't fully understand every facet of the industry. And we see this a lot when we teach. There's a lot of silos. We group with likes. We stick with people we're comfortable with and like. I'm a metallurgist by trade. I love talking metallurgy with metallurgists. But if you're a geologist or a mining engineer or a lawyer sitting at that table, it's going to drive you nuts and you're going to be bored. And I think that's one of the big challenges people in the ESG space have to overcome. And it's really a big challenge to overcome.
So you're saying the silos are why we don't understand natural capital. I think we just don't understand natural capital. I think we literally have spent so long listening to Italian monks from the 14th century about accounting that we haven't ever actually thought about what we actually have on our balance sheet. Because if it doesn't show up under IFRS or some accounting system, and if a stock exchange doesn't make you sign off on it every year, it has no value. So I think one of the things we need to do as an industry is to actually say, hey, what are the things we have that create value? For me, my time creates value. For me, my access to sunlight creates value. My access to having an air conditioner creates value, so I'm not overworked in the summer. And my access to dark chocolate creates value. Okay. If you cut me off from dark chocolate, Ben, would you like to work for me with me 2 weeks later?
Probably not. But I'll argue that the dark chocolate you consume probably doesn't show up in a significant way on your balance sheet. So, in a
Nope.
traditional analysis of the problem under IFRS or any other accounting code, no one's going to notice that.
Look, the solar tube I work under doesn't show up under my balance sheet. I work under $1,000 skylight.
Yep.
That $1,000 skylight can't have cost me more than a half a day of work or whatever, how much day of work it cost me. It cost me almost nothing. Standing directly underneath the skylight with beautiful natural light not only makes me look better on a podcast, unlike your dark cave you live in, but it fundamentally massively shifts my natural value because I'm suddenly dealing with all the positiveness. I get more light in a rainy place like Oregon than you get in a sunny place like Denver because my house is optimized for sunlight and yours is optimized to be a cave.
In fact, it is. It is optimized, especially for this time of the day when the sun will stream in my window to be a bit darker. But coming back to your point before it's lost on your criticism, I could knock a skylight in and it'd just go through to the next floor. Um, Sorry, coming back to it. So your argument around some of this stuff is we've lost the way because the accounting systems we have in place, the reporting structures we have in place, don't necessarily value these things, or they don't show up. Is that what you're saying?
It's not even that. We fundamentally care about the KPIs we track. If you care about being healthy, the easiest KPI to track is the bathroom scale. I am probably the healthiest I have been in 4 years. I'm
Yep.
also 12 pounds heavier than I normally am. Okay. My ability to go to the gym, to do heavy weightlifting, my ability to stretch, my ability to do this, my ability to do push ups, I can sit down and drop and do 20 push ups right now. I'm also 12 pounds heavier.
I'm
If the
so
only KPI, what?
I am so tempted to get you to do
Well, unfortunately, it wouldn't show up on camera, so we won't work that through.
that.
And I've already done my morning push ups, so we'll have that conversation. But my point is, all of those KPIs that we're talking about don't show up on the scale. So I don't feel like I'm healthy, even though I'm far healthier than I would be otherwise. Part of the problem we have is what we track, that's what we care about. We don't track natural capital in a meaningful way because we don't really focus on the 5 other balance sheets. We just focus on cash and accounting. And
Okay.
mining companies convert those 5 balance sheets into money. The more efficiently we convert those 5 balance sheets, the richer we are. And arguably, there's a sixth balance sheet, but the sixth one is really vague and really hard to deal with. And the question is, how do we convert them better, and how do we make that work? That's going to be the focus of what we talk about.
Okay. So one, we don't track it. Two, we have maybe not the right KPIs around natural capital. And I'm coming back to my initial point. Three, they're silos. Because if you want to change something, it's really hard to change something just with one person. If you're in a big organization, you need to build a coalition of the willing. You need to cross the borders. You need to
Yeah, and
understand different nuances.
on top of that, we're stuck in this incredibly toxic LCA, ESG. You must keep track of this from a Germanic perspective that frames all ESG into one narrow little silo that fundamentally has no connection with reality. It's like everything became carbon 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, and we forgot that water exists.
Mm. And I
I
think we
mean,
both agree carbon emissions isn't the biggest challenge the mining industry faces in natural capital.
no, carbon emissions are what we solve. Not the gold mining industry. Let's be clear here. Carbon emissions is what the copper mining or the zinc mining, or even strange enough, the iron ore mining industry solves.
Yep.
We create the systems that will reduce those emissions. The problem is the capital we spend to do that is all local. It's local water, it's local ore bodies, it's local tailings dam creations, it's local energy consumption, and it's local human capital.
Yep.
And that's before we get to the larger biodiversity and everything else we deplete.
Yep.
But we're depleting
Biodiversity, air quality, you name it. There's a whole bunch of natural capital we impact as miners.
I mean, heck, you know all about it. You
But
identify a lead miner.
I do identify as a lead miner. So I've got a twitch. No, coming back to it, and you made a very good point. A number of the metals we mine, just let's focus on the carbon intensity and lowering the carbon output of the world. There are a number of metals we supply the world with, which without them, we've got no chance of the energy transition or anything else.
You're
Yet we
not
don't.
building a solar cell without copper.
Yep. Yep.
You are building a battery without nickel, which is kind of terrifying. So the nickel industry got too expensive and got engineered out, but we're not engineering copper out.
Okay.
So let's come back to solutions. Basically, from my perspective, you got to go look at an operation. I don't care where the operation is, and you got to say, hey, what is the value per unit of natural capital? If we're in the Atacama Desert in Chile, can we get the revenue per cubic meter of water from $80 a cubic meter to 160? Can we get the revenue per dry metric tons of tailings deposited from 40 to 55? Can we increase revenue of per kilowatt of electricity we consume? And can we, more importantly, increase revenue per ton of carbon we emit? How can we fundamentally shift that ratio? First from a top line and then from a bottom line. So first focus on revenue and then focus on maximizing profits. Because I'd argue that in Chile, we can easily shift the revenue per cubic meter of water by $20 or $30 a cubic meter with relatively small changes, which when you realize they're paying $5 a cubic meter for the water, massively makes the mining company more profitable for tiny, tiny things.
And is this, you've already talked about KPIs. Do you think this is also a cultural problem that we like chasing big, shiny goals as opposed to making these small little incremental changes to make things a little bit better?
I think I don't think that's the cultural problem. I think the cultural problem is we are so busy living our lives that we don't really think about what really matters. I don't think we have nearly enough Zen Buddhist temples that are next to operations where the mining manager is forced to sit there and think Zen thoughts for 2 hours a day every day while he does his high stress job. Part of the problem is we are busy crisis managing daily, hourly. I mean, look, we started this podcast 15 minutes late. Why? Because it was Friday morning and we still had 7 crises from Europe that had to be done before 6 p.m. London time.
Yep.
Okay. The fact that to do a podcast that we scheduled weeks in advance forced us to be 15 minutes late.
Yep.
And during that time, we got 6 emails drafted. I mean, it's kind of nuts how much we're crisis managing versus actually long-term planning. And that is the fundamental problem with the industry. So here's what I'm proposing. We're going to come together. We're going to give you a weekly podcast. We're going to talk to you guys, or every other week. I don't know what Dave wants to do.
Well,
It's going to be a podcast.
once a month, once every
Who
2 months.
knows?
Who knows?
We're going to figure this out.
See. We'll see. Depends if people listen.
You know, people tend to listen to us purely to wait for us to say something stupid.
Yeah.
And then they
comparison of our cutting techniques.
Yes. Heaven forbid we actually get unified on how we. I'm going to actually order you the right razor.
No. That'll be funny, and we might even bring my wife on as a guest just to give feedback on it.
Yeah, because if I order you the right razor, you're going to use it because you're such a cheap bastard that you're going to use it just to check it out. You see, this is the problem with natural capital. Once you have the shiny toy, you have to use it.
That's a problem, I think, in every industry, but that's definitely a thing in the mining industry. But then we take those shiny toys, we don't learn how to use them properly. Then we give them a bit of a, can I say half-assed? I'm going to say half-assed attempt. And then we say, oh, it doesn't work, it's too hard.
Oh, I think it's even worse than that. I think that we justify it. We spend the rest of our lives justifying why we bought the shiny toy in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, no, I think a group spends their life justifying and the other spends their life attacking, and no one really gives it a good shot in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about natural capital optimization. We're going to do it in a podcast format. We're going to go through initially the first 5 core areas that we think can be easily optimized for the mining industry.
Yep.
This is not just relevant to the mining industry. We're talking about mining because it's easy and because mining is 95% of human waste. Mining is a massive, massive footprint on carbon. Mining is just big. So it's easy to make very tiny gains in a massive field to do a massive shift in how we produce and consume things. Okay? And then we're going to take questions from you guys. I think Davey wants to set up and ask you anything or ask us anything type of format, which is going to be fun. And we're going to have guests in here and we're going to figure this all out. Like, we really don't know what we're doing. No. In theory, we should, but we don't have a clue.
But if you have questions, we are both on LinkedIn, and we're not shrinking violets. So if you have feedback for us on this podcast or have questions for us to answer on this podcast or anywhere else, please reach out to us. Send us a message. Connect with us. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hate. We love feedback, and we will endeavor to tweak and change. Benjamin might even twerk. Yeah.
Oh, are you saying I can twerk?
I don't want to say it, but I'm sure you can twerk.
I can't.
If you can do 20 push-ups in the morning, I'm sure you can twerk.
It's funny. I can do 20 push-ups. I can't twerk. Twerking is actually a skill that does not work with my ADHD/neurodivergence.
Okay.
Did you want to know
I'm
that?
not even gonna unpack that at this point.
Cool.
There's so many things I want to say, but you get the idea. Reach out to us, either on LinkedIn, as we said. Our website for B Squared Natural Capital should be up and running soon, so you can also reach out to us there. Give us your questions, and we will endeavor to answer them.
Yep. And next time we're going to talk about water. So we'll see you later. Have fun.
Bye. Thanks for listening.